Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, sponsored by Fieldstone Communities, Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, now accepting residents. They also offer day stay and respite programs. Call 360-689-4314 to schedule a tour of Fieldstone's beautiful apartments on Rolling Bay today. And I'd also like to acknowledge that the Senior Community Center is on the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Suquamish tribe, the people of the clear salt water. We honor them and are grateful for their hospitality. But today, David Harrison checks in with his monthly review of national politics. David was the founder and executive director of the Northwest Policy Center at the University of Washington. As senior lecturer, he taught policy analysis for many years at the university's Evans School. Hi, David. What's up?
No, nothing happening out there, so let's talk anyway. As usual, we'll do 3 topics, and we'll hope that our wisdom will also be linked and shared to other people who will watch us, even without us knowing it. It's quite a time. I can't remember anything in our political lives which was as sudden, important, and unexpected in terms of electoral impact as the vote in Kansas. I reminded my sweetie that in Wizard of Oz, when the Munchkins are going over with Dorothy what happened with the Wicked Witch and so forth, the line is, Kansas, she said, was the name of the star. So that's what happened. Kansas is definitely the name of the star. People were predicting that we were going to get at the high end 46, 47% of the vote in a conservative state, and we got 58. And of course, that's cool for Kansans, but its implications are amazing for the rest of the country. So I'll go over a little bit about what I think. There's various tiers of impact, and let's go over those, and then we'll go on to 2 other topics. That's an unpredicted shift in the election dynamic. For a long time, we had been in a situation where commentators were saying, who really knows who will benefit from the Dobbs decision? And to me, that was always silly. I think it's pretty obvious that if you have an issue that runs 65-35 or 70-30 among voters, that if the Supreme Court goes in the other direction and you have more people upset than the other side, that it's going to advantage you. I think what's different with regard to Kansas is how remarkable, how the extent of the impact. Keep in mind, however, that Kansas is a reliably Republican state, but it's got a Democratic governor because the Republicans ran a lousy candidate 4 years ago, and so it's not inconceivable that it's a somewhat different stripe of Republican than these than some of the neighboring states. However, let's think about how this will play. The New York Times did an electoral analysis that says that 42 states would vote for such protections if it was put before the people. So really brilliantly done article. And of course, you can make arguments over methodology, but what it says is we've got more battles to fight than we necessarily thought we did. I said last time we talked that the biggest fights over what the law is at present tend to be in the swing states that we've come to know and love. That's good for us because what if you could have a situation where the senatorial races you're contesting were all in states like Washington, which are safe for the right to choose. So it turns out that Arizona, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Wisconsin all have things that are before them that are very important in terms of what the law is going to be or what the court's going to decide, what the legislature is going to do about it. They all have major pending abortion rights issues at the same time that we're running big battles to get a bigger majority in the Senate and to keep the House. So it lines up very, very nicely for us. I want us to think about tiers because there is no better way for it to be positioned than there to be a ballot initiative that takes people to the polls. In fact, 300,000 or so people voted on the ballot initiative and didn't vote in the governor's race. So we don't have that except in Colorado. What you could say about it happening in Colorado is there were few people were thinking that Senator Michael Bennet might be in a little trouble. And what the Kansas vote says is he's not going to be in trouble for pretty much the same reason where after all that money that Tiffany's finally spent on putting ads before you, why Patty Murray's 22% ahead. It's hard enough for a Republican to win in Washington state, but it's not going to happen that an anti-choice Republican wins in Washington state. And I think it also has something to do with the good showing that Kim Schreier had. So we would like it if in every one of these states there was a ballot initiative, but there isn't, only in Colorado. But there's this, in 5 states where there are battles over what the statutory or constitutional protection is for women seeking choice. 5 of those states, we have a good chance to flip the legislature. So at least one or both houses are on the other side in Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. And in all 5 of the cases, even before the Hobbs decision, those were our targeted states to win back the legislature, which of course is the key body if you're going to pass a statutory protection on choice. Some of those states, for instance, have a pre-Roe prohibition on choice and so forth. So these states are very much in play, and there's huge battles for the state legislature. And what the Kansas vote shows in those 5 states is we have a better chance than we thought we did. Minnesota, Michigan, New Hampshire, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. And you will notice that in 2 of those states, Arizona and New Hampshire, we're protecting senators who narrowly won, Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire and Mark Kelly in Arizona. So that means they're easier to protect. And in one state, the Fetterman race in Pennsylvania, it helps him. He's ahead of Mehmet Oz, but it helps Fetterman a lot. The next tiers is you want a Democratic governor when you have a Republican state legislature, because so she or he can veto whatever nonsensical or inappropriate or whatever deprivations they are their favorite of the moment as they seek to comfort the comfortable. And so that adds a couple more states, a big battle for governor and senator in Wisconsin while they're battling over abortion rights. Michigan, where this will strengthen Gretchen Whitmer. Kansas, already spoken to. Back again to Pennsylvania, where there's a big governor's race where the attorney general is running against anti-choicer. Georgia, where we want to protect Raphael Warnock, and there'll be big battles. And Arizona again. So what you're seeing is me drinking water. what you're seeing is abortion battles, choice battles concentrated in states which we needed to concentrate on anyway. So this is remarkable, amazing, wonderful, extraordinary. And we would have rather had Roe be protected, but if we're going to have Roe be beaten up, taken away, then we might as well get electoral advantage in November. And of course, the thrust here is in terms of those of us who obsess about keeping the House and taking back the Senate. This has special implications for New Hampshire, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia. So those are all big states for us in terms of the Senate. One more try. So you know all this, but I thought you'd appreciate the tiers, because it isn't the same in each state. It's how the battle is joined. And way down on the list in people's head is, well, the United States Congress could pass an abortion rights bill, a statute that makes it a law of the land, basically a statute that takes us back to the conditions of Roe v. Wade. The problem with that is, and so all of a sudden, if you're running for Congress, the fact that you're pro-choice matters a lot. And you're looking to, if you're running in a swing district in New York State or California, that would still be the case. But it's harder to join the issue because people who watch it know that there aren't 60 votes in the Senate. And we're not going to get 60 votes, even if we do well. So even if we could get Susan Collins and Murkowski or whoever to vote with us, we're not going to have 60 votes in the Senate for a national law protecting abortion rights. So that makes it a little harder on that tier. But as I said, there's so many other races in those states where it really, really, really does matter, that it will help candidates, even if they're not going to be the ones who will seal our deal. The other thing that's happening is Republican candidates are now scurrying over rape and incest. There's a lot of Republican state legislatures who are not willing to create the exemption. So that's one thing they'll do to try and show that they have even the tiniest bit of sense. So that's our story. It's an excellent story. We'll get into what could go wrong, but it's a good story. In the meantime, as you know, Biden is trying to set it up so that Medicaid money can be used to pay someone's travel to go to a nearby state to get an abortion. And that's easier to protect, actually, not so much the Medicare exception, but the travel, because Kavanaugh, I may have mentioned this before, in a separate opinion, said it was not a controversial thing to say that there's a constitutionally protected right to travel. What Kavanaugh was doing is signaling Roberts that he's the fifth vote to overturn a state that dares to pass a law saying that they can't, that their residents can't go to another state to get an abortion. So Kavanaugh did that on purpose. Roberts knows he did it on purpose, and it means they've got five. There's been a right to travel for a long time, and so there's 5 votes there, and that's why Biden is messing around with it. That isn't to say that there's necessarily a constitutional right to get Medicaid funding to travel, but I know that Republicans don't have the votes to block that, so I think that may well happen. The other thing to remember is it's actually easier for a state to keep you from getting a prescription from another state. So if you were to establish a big company in Washington and send an abortion pill in the first trimester to a woman in Alabama, Alabama could classify you as, they could sue you for your, they might have standing just like they do in blocking somebody from sending quack medicine. So what Planned Parenthood and others are looking to do besides increase their capacity in places like Walla Walla, where not just Spokane, Walla Walla, where women from Idaho go. What they're looking to do is find reliable European providers of those prescriptions because Alabama can't touch them. So there's multiple fronts to provide a choice to women while these battles are being fought, and they're pretty significant. So that's my report. The upshot is this is the political further boost. If we are going to save the House and add 3 or 4 Senate seats, the Kansas vote is the signal that we can. Questions, thoughts, or concerns on this matter?
I would like to know why Lauren Culp got as many votes as he did.
Who did? Oh, you mean more than one vote?
The sheriff, yeah. He got a lot of votes, David.
Well, if it hadn't been for so many Republicans in the primary, the #1 vote getter would have been Lauren Culp.
Right.
Both that race and then Jamie Herrera Butler's race, the Salvation, the Seattle Times is a little mixed up on this. They're saying it's because of the jungle primary. Absolutely not. It's because of multiple. The jungle primary is interesting, but you notice in both cases, we got 1 Democrat and 1 Republican, which we used to get before the jungle primary. And so why didn't a different Republican win besides Dan Newhouse and Jamie Herrera Butler? Parenthetically, Dan Newhouse is not a friend of anything we support except for holding Trump accountable, whereas Jamie Herrera Butler has done a lot of moderate things, and that's why our dear friend Carolyn Long was not able to touch her. She's just camped out almost as much as any Republican left in the House. She's camped out in the center. And so at any rate, to make a long story short, Lauren Culp would have got 40% and beat Newhouse. Now, Newhouse for the Republican nomination were not for 4 or 5 Republican candidates. And it doesn't say much for that district because that man is insane. I mean, the man is, yes. Likewise, Herrera Butler is just squeaking by over whatever that guy's name is. Now I'm forgetting. But what it means is they'll both win. There's a very good Democratic candidate in Yakima, Doug White, who some of you may get his stuff. I talked to him. He's the real deal. Jay Inslee won in that district. He's Jay Inslee 20 years later, except I don't think there's enough Republicans that bad at Newhouse to vote him in. We'll see. Similarly, it's a small business owner. The question in Vancouver, Washington, I don't think, even though the Democrat got 35% of the vote, that there's enough Democrats to put her over the top. I think all the people who are mad at Jamie Herrera Butler will go back to her, but we'll see. And both are interesting. It's not enough to make them targeted races, surprisingly. Now on the subject, Kim Schreier's number is excellent. Even if it's not 50%, it's so far ahead of Larkin that that'll get changed from swing to lean Democrat, and it may even cost Larkin national money. it's a long shot to think they could take her out. And that's because she's been a good member. It should always work this way. She's very good. And yeah, her new ad is an endorsement from the Republican mayor, Wenatchee. That shows how good she is. David Axelrod, who you remember was a key aide to Obama and knows Joe Biden very well, said the other day, you can make an argument that no Democratic president has had more legislative success in his first 2 years since FDR. When you look at it, Joe Biden's now with the Manchin and Sinema crafting this new law with him. He's got the rescue plan, which was the COVID rescue, American Jobs Act, which is a huge bipartisan infrastructure bill, the strengthening of NATO, the CHIPS bill, which is an aggressive effort to restore our ability to manufacture microchips, the new largest effort on climate change in the history of the Republic for which we stand, and upcoming, which will pass for sure, a clarification of the process by which elections are certified. So it's pretty amazing. So the question for us is what Axelrod said, besides that this is astonishing, is, well, first, why has Biden been able to do it with only 50 votes? And Biden, they had a secret ballot in the Senate. 70 of them would have voted for him for president because they like him, because he has integrity. All these old-fashioned words that are out of fashion, they like him. They wish he wasn't, that he had all the energy that he had at 60, which he doesn't, but they like, it's comforting to him that he's president and not Donald Trump. So Axelrod said, the reason why Joe Biden's popularity is so low is he overpromised at the outset. He said, I'm going to have this American mega plan and this plan, and each one you look at it, it was several $1 trillion. And why would somebody do that? Two reasons. There's this, just the same reason why if you're negotiating somebody with something that you start with a high number, if you're doing that personally, I'll paint your house for $10,000 when really you would paint it for $6,000. So Biden did that knowing that he wasn't going to get all those $3 trillion packages. But Biden's also a creature of history, and people are still talking about Jack Kennedy's first 1,000 days. So because you face off your elections 2 years after you're initially elected, you get the idea that 90% of what you accomplish, you're going to accomplish in the first 2 years, because the chances are in off-year elections, you're going to lose some senators. And if you only got 50, that means Mitch McConnell in the last 2 years decides what you get to do. So that's probably why Biden talked big, and Axelrod, being a smart person, probably knows that. So I think the rest of the reason why is, there's only one reason why. Well, no, there's more than one. Why is Biden not more popular, given that he's done all these things, almost all of which, if you polled Americans, 70% of them would like that he did infrastructure, chips. The biggest reason is inflation. People can talk all they want about Biden's job creation, which is enormous, and the low unemployment rate. Unless you want a job and just got one, or had a job and just lost one, that's data for you. And most of us on the screen, other than Christina out there working away, don't want a job. Oh, I'm sorry. Sheila's busting her
She's
with
working.
with a playoff bound team. People feel inflation. It's a big issue for them. You can say it's because partly the Ukraine and so forth and Putin, and you can say it's getting better, and you can say it's happening in other countries. All are true, and we traffic in those things, but we need inflation to recede by November. We need the next report to be, see how those gas prices have gone down and food prices are beginning to go down. So the Fed's strategy seems to be working, and we need the inflation to be less of an issue by November, or otherwise it would cost us 20 House seats, perhaps, or 3 Senate seats that we would have otherwise won. So that's why this is the way it is. There's one other reason that is infuriating, and that is if I hear one more Democrat say, I don't know why Joe Biden doesn't know more about Brittany Griner being in a jail, or one more Democrat saying, I don't know why Biden doesn't, do more about abortion and climate change. How about the idea that Biden has gone to on the last 2 issues, to the full limit of his existing constitutional powers? It turns out that matters. When Trump exceeded his, we filed suit against him and won. So it's wonderful that Manchin has got this deal. And it gives an easier answer to the question. But I think it shouldn't be too hard to realize that if you only have 50 votes and one of them is Joe Manchin, that he's done awfully well. And for Democrats to support, he's not doing enough narrative, makes me wonder if they remember their civics class in 7th grade. It's just, I can't understand why anybody would say that. And to have Robert Reich say it, I used to know him a little bit, and he's a very smart man, saying very stupid things. Obviously, Manchin has been upsetting, but he voted to confirm 70 new federal judges. He was key on the bipartisan inflation bill, and he's enormously important on the electoral reform certification process. And for Rice to say he should be stripped of his committee assignments, think about that. All that would mean is he would quit the party and Mitch McConnell would be the majority leader. Now, how smart is that? You don't have to teach at Berkeley to understand that that's stupid, and let's stop saying stupid things. It's embarrassing and it hurts Biden, so let's stop it. So the nice thing about Manchin's bill, of course, is it will stop it. And to review, we know that it gives some limited ability for Medicare to negotiate prescription prices, which will be good for those of us, including me, who are on prescriptions. It's a mammoth incentive package for climate change, including not just for individuals, but for corporations, including decreasing their methane emissions, which are highly destructive. It shores up Obamacare and deliciously has a corporate minimum tax that will help decrease the deficit. A corporate minimum tax where no matter what, you have to pay 15%, no matter how many research tax credits and so forth. So it's a great thing. And the lesson of this little ditty number 2 is we have a responsibility for, as upset as we get with our side, to remember that if Donald Trump hadn't shot off his mouth in Georgia, we would have 48 votes. And other than maybe an infrastructure act, none of these things would have happened. I just think that would be worth remembering. It's not, we, you know, we had a ground ball and we ended up on third base thanks to him. Warnock and Ossoff were not going to win until not
Should we,
necessarily.
should we send him a thank you note, David?
I think we, if he wasn't so annoying, we should wish that he would run for president. But I'm willing to deal with. I just think it's every day that the man is in public life is a stain on the fabric of democracy. So I have one other topic. And do we have any questions on why Biden is unpopular and what we need to do about it? We need to root for the Fed to lower inflation and to thread the needle and to not drive us into recession, have the growth rate go down to 2% or so, inflation go down to 5% or so, and that will really help us in November as we take advantage of all our legislative successes.
I missed the name of the person that you were saying bad things about.
Reich, Robert Reich, who was Obama's Secretary of Labor.
From Illinois?
Reich was Secretary of the Treasury.
Robert Reich. Oh, my God. Oh, yeah, right.
I'm just mad at him for calling on Schumer to strip Manchin of his committee assignments, because we've had so much trouble with getting federal judges. And the fact that Manchin has supported all 70 of them when he didn't have to has been a wonderful thing. So third topic, we've got a couple minutes. It is now 12:05. So where do we stand then? We talked about our candidates here. Kim Schreier is less at risk than we thought. We have a chance to flip seats against Newhouse and Herrera Butler. The other day, Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, who's done wonderful work on the Insurrection Committee, bemoaned the fact that Peter Meyer lost in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Peter Meyer was a good, moderate Republican congressman. Peter Meyer got beat not because of Trump, but because Democrats crossed over, let Peter Meyer lose to a maniacal candidate, so we would be more likely to win this fall. So it's being portrayed as a Trump scalp, but if Democrats had behaved themselves, Peter Meyer would have won. So that annoyed Adam Kinzinger, because after all, Peter Meyer voted for impeachment. But let me tell you, Peter Meyer voted for all sorts of things that Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump want. So I think it is great that Herrera Butler and Newhouse had courage, but you still have to hold a congressperson responsible for who they vote with every day. And Herrera Butler, like I say, is a good moderate Republican congresswoman, but I can tell you, she votes against meaningful strategies on climate change every day of the year. So let's just not get too fuzzy about that. So there's a greater chance. Nate Silver is now saying we have maybe 25% chance of saving the House, maybe higher, with this vote in Kansas. Remember, the issue here is what the generic congressional vote is. So that's a polling question that says, are you more likely to vote for the Democrat or the Republican? We were running -6 or so. When we have to save the House, we have to be +2, but that's narrowed a lot. So you want to go, if you care about, if you're watching this, you want to go on 538.com and see how the generic vote polls are going, because that's the best test. There's a greater chance we're going to expand in the Senate, which will make Manchin and Sinema much less necessary. If we can add 4 votes, 4 people like Tim Ryan and Fetterman and Beasley in South Carolina, then all of a sudden everything doesn't have to be negotiated with Manchin. It's a great climate package, but he made them do some things on oil leasing and so forth that they would never have done if he didn't have that leverage. we get 10 times the climate savings than the losses that he's engineered. Whereas people who we thought were unsafe, Mark Kelly in Arizona, Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire, and what's her name in Nevada, I have a better chance now. And the people who we thought might take back seats have a better chance now. So in order, we're feeling really, really good about Fetterman, even though he had that stroke. He's significantly ahead of Dr. Oz, who does not have direction. We're feeling good about Tim Ryan in Ohio. I always thought that would be the case. He's as some of you know, Sherrod Brown is already a Democratic senator from Ohio. And they both have gotten the attention of blue collar Ohio voters who we have lost a lot of them to Trump, but we are not losing with regard to Tim Ryan versus J.D. Vance. That's why he's ahead. We have a really good shot in as you know, in North Carolina. Beasley is the former elected head of the state Supreme Court. And in Wisconsin, that's your fourth. Wisconsin is Ron Johnson running against to be named in a couple of weeks. And those are very close. And we could absolutely take back that seat. So it wouldn't be out of the question for us to take back 4. I'd love the 5th to be Val Deming beating Rubio in Florida, but I think that's a longer shot. Although yet again, the abortion issue will help her. I wanted to say one other thing before I take any final questions before we close. There's a concerted effort, as some of you know, to elect election denialists into elections positions. And a lot of them are in states that we're not going to win anyway. But in Arizona, a denialist has been nominated as a Republican candidate for Secretary of State, and thus the manager of elections. His name is Mark Fincham. He was there at the day of the insurrection. He didn't enter the Capitals, but he was there. He may have once been a Proud Boy, and he's an idiot. So after all these years of my blog giving general counsel and suggesting to people where they put their volunteer time and their postcards and where they donate money, I'm going to do a special effort for Mi Familia Vota, which is a Latino activist organization, to defeat Mark Fincham and support Adrian Fonts, Adrian Fonts was the Maricopa County recorder who was running the election where we won, and who is turning this as a battle over election integrity. And so I'm going to help Mi Familia Vota do some targeted digital ads for Latino voters on this race. And so those of you who get my blog will see that, and we'll have a dedicated fund, and my blog folks are going to give them $10,000, knock on wood. So questions, thoughts, insults, insights, counsel before we close up?
I bought my popcorn for the Walker Warnock debate.
Well, you read what Herschel Walker said about climate change and about us getting China's bad air and them getting our good air.
When's that going to be, Karen?
Their primary?
No, the debate.
The debate.
Their debate? I don't know the date.
Yes, Herschel Walker has not agreed to it.
Yeah, he was not going to.
That's right, he hasn't.
But he has agreed now.
Oh,
He's still counting the kids, the number of kids he has.
yeah, that's right. It was like back when somebody, oh, McCabe, bless his soul, couldn't immediately remember how many houses he had. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Herschel's got,
Walker is a piece of work, I'll tell you.
well, he shouldn't be running for it. It shouldn't be possible. In America, we should know whether somebody has basic understanding of the
No.
unit of government that they'll represent. I feel good about Warnock. I feel good about his chances. Note that he's polling not insignificantly ahead of Stacey Abrams. Brian Kemp having that big primary victory over David Perdue is a problem for Stacey Abrams. It makes me wish she had figured out a different path rather than running for governor 4 years later. We could absolutely get a situation where Kemp wins and Warnock wins. That could absolutely happen. Other questions, thoughts, concerns?
The people in Wisconsin, are being told, are not feeling good about the fact that Ron Johnson's still running.
Well, he said he wouldn't, but
well, of course, but then he decided to run.
Johnson, over the years, I mean, for a while, he said totally bizarre things about COVID. He's one of these folks who's made up a story with regard to the insurrection. At first it was Antifa, and then it was tourists. And so it takes us back to this well-produced TV show we've been watching with regard to January 6th. I think I might have said that, but when Kim Schreier was here, I asked her, whether they were prepared to do not the usual congressional hearing. And she said that they were. Boy, have they. That is so gripping. And the fact that they figured out how they could be members of Congress without yielding the chair to each other 140 times.
Right.
It's been great. So it's making it harder for the Ron Johnsons of the world to make up stories. And of course, the picture of Josh Hawley running through the Capitol.
Oh, dear God. Oh, dear God.
So I think Ron Johnson is very vulnerable. Wisconsin, that used to be the state of Proxmire and Gaylord Nelson.
Right.
And after that, Herb Kohler. So they can win that. They have to go out.
Well, even the Republicans, when I lived there in the 70s and 80s and 60s and 70s and 80s, even the Republicans were, progressive to a certain point. I mean, you had Dave Obey, not Obey, the guy who was defense secretary, Mel Laird. I always voted for Mel Laird. I mean, he was these were great people.
I lived in Michigan at the same time, and it's Tommy Thompson was a Democrat. Even the Green Vest man, Lee Dreyfus, was a more of a moderate than a conservative. Midwest Republicans changed, and I worked for Bill Milliken, and what happened is when Reagan got in, they started executing moderate Republican Party officials, and there was a takeover from within, and that to this day has affected. You look at Kasich and DeWine, who in the olden days would have been pretty close to Dan Evans Republicans, and they don't have the guts to do it in Ohio, and that's what happened to the Republican Party in the Midwest. Jim Thompson, another example, the fairly moderate Republican governor of Illinois, Bob Ray in Iowa, was a whole nest of moderate Republican governors, and them and all their supporters are gone. So it's a changed party. It's amazing to have Trump use the expression "rhino," Republicans in name only because Trump was never a Republican in the first place. He's ahead of the Trump party. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with anything but what makes him popular with some people.
Did you talk at all about Andrew Yang and Christine Todd Whitman and the little effort to try to start a third party that probably is going nowhere, but just the idea that given what's happening with the Republicans, that the centrists have nowhere to go?
I didn't, and somebody asked me about that the other day. I don't think Andrew Yang has the standing. I think for a minute in time he he did, but I think there's something about winner take all elections that makes it impossible to get traction with a third party. You know, as you know, Ross Perot got up to 12% or so, and I just think there are too. If we had a parliamentary system, we'd have plenty of parties, but I don't think we're going to. And Christine Todd Whitman, I mean, you know, if I mean, it's disadvantageous. I think you really have a choice of fighting within your party or going to the other party. The bone I have to pick is all the way back to Olympia Snow when she left in Maine, said this has become a dysfunctional place. Then change yourself, Olympia Snow. They go into that caucus, and Susan Collins does it, and Murkowski, and Mitt Romney, and they give Mitch what he wants. And they could have saved Merrick Garland if they had guts, and they want to. If what the Christine Todd Whitmans need to be doing is to be fighting within that party, I think.
Well, so I look at the number of people who identify as independents. That keeps growing with the sort of frustration with parties. But of course, there is no independent party, and the Green Party isn't a real alternative nationally, or except in. And we do have a few people. I see that Julie Anderson is running in this state as Secretary of State as an independent.
I think she's a special case. I've met her, and Steve Hobbs is a student of mine. I'm very interested in that race because if Julie Anderson was running as an independent for governor, lieutenant governor, any of those other races, nobody pay any attention at all. She's a veteran elections official. She is extremely competent. She's also Mary Anderson's cousin, if anybody knows Mary Anderson from Bainbridge Island. But yeah, I'm even though I know Hobbs, I'm inclined to vote for her. But I think running for Secretary of State as an independent is a whole different.
Well, it's basically picking up the Kim Wyman mantle.
That's right. It's an attempt to do so, although Hobbs's lead on her is huge. It really depends on whether she can raise advertising money, because it's conceivable that enough Democrats would vote for her to win that race, even though she's quite a ways behind.
So
I
now
think there's no future of a third party.
So now we feel sorry for Tim Eyman because he has to sell all his houses and boats and everything. I read that this morning. By the way, yeah, but the thing, there's a Mandela Barnes from Wisconsin is running for senator, and she is amazing. Keep your eye on her. She's amazing.
Okay.
I think she's
She's one of the two leaders. But what were you saying about Kim Wyman?
Mandela Barnes.
Okay.
In Wisconsin.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know that she's got an opponent too, but
she does. But she's but the people who in the know say that she's going to be the one who's going to get the primary.
great first name.
Yeah.
She's
I think either vice or a lieutenant governor or secretary of state, one or the other.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Bonnie, do you have a question?
Well, I'm wondering if the Democrats don't owe Liz Cheney a little something. She's having so much trouble with the Republicans. What should we do to help her?
Well, there's Sarah Longwell, who's a Republican activist, is raising money for her, and it's late to put money in. I think right now it's just hoping for the best. I think, you know, her only hope is crossover Democrats. You can do that in Wyoming, but there's a process. You can't just, I don't think you can do it on the same day like you could here. You can just go back and forth on the ballot. I think you have to, Does anybody know? I think you have to do
They
something.
have a closed primary instead of an open primary, I think, yeah.
Well,
So
I know you
do
can
they have
take
to
the
register?
Republican ballot. I just don't know what the process is.
Oh,
Anyway,
okay, I'm
that's
not sure.
That's her only hope. But remember this, she knew that all along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So she may be sounding like, and she might survive, but I don't think so. It's a pretty tough thing to do in Wyoming to oppose Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But remember, she'll have life after this. She's given an enormous gift to America.
Yeah.
Remember, she has given some not gifts to America. Quite
Yeah.
notably, she avoided her lesbian sister for the longest time and didn't embrace her. And her voting record is awful, but she certainly has stood up for the Constitution. So
I agree.
bless her for that.
yeah, and her father did a ad. Did you happen to see the
Yeah,
ad
called
that
Trump a
Cheney
coward.
did?
Yeah.
Whoa,
Her father also made up a war, which is still annoying. But yeah, I think they're doing a great thing. And remember, there's a secret force behind them doing that. And he lives in Texas, and it's George W. has been mortally sinned against by Trump. And this is part of his revenge. So
yeah,
I promise you that Dick Cheney and George Bush, Dick Cheney was upset with George Bush for not pardoning Scooter Libby, but
yeah.
they talk. I promise you that George Bush is chortling at every day of the January 6 hearings.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
any rate, let's see each other next month and see
Okay,
what's happening.